backs, our late season gem, Jonathan Williams, has had over 100 yards the past 2 weeks. At home against the Titans this week is an interesting matchup. Obviously, the Titans are, one of the tougher defenses versus the run. But Jonathan Williams has been getting fed the rock over 20 carries this past week. I think if he's still available in your league, you should be picking him up immediately. And then D, obviously can't move on without mentioning your boy Benny Snell. Had 20 carries this past week. If James Conner misses again, like we talked about Jalen Samuels earlier, huge disappointment. I think Benny Snell, who took 21 carries for 98 yards this past week and had a few catches as well, is a decent play versus Cleveland at home with Duck Hodges at the helm. And then perhaps a possible revenge game here if Jordan Howard cannot play versus the Miami Dolphins, or should I say on road against the Miami Dolphins. The J-Train himself might earn himself a good workload on the road against these Dolphins. Hopefully, I'm obviously as an Eagles fan hoping Jordan Howard is healthy again. If so, forget about the J-Train. Him and Howard and Miles Sanders are going to take over the workload. But if Howard can't play, it's going to be Miles Sanders first and Jay Ajayi second. So maybe a vulture is a touchdown and gets you the points you need at the flex position to win your matchup. And then finally, for running backs, just because the defense has been known to give up yardage on the ground, I've got to mention the Washington Redskins duo. It might be Adrian Peterson, it might be Darius Geis, but someone's going to get an opportunity to score against this Carolina Panthers defense who ranks in the bottom of the league when it comes to stopping the run, which is just so strange when you think about who they have in the front seven between Luke Kuechly and Gerald McCoy and Poe. And it's just, I don't know, very odd.
Well, it might help if I unmute my mic, I was going to say, that is a great point because we were talking to the C3 Panthers podcast guys, and they brought up a great point about those defensive linemen. And their names make you think, oh, they're really great players. But the reason their teams let them go is because both Poe and McCoy were terrible at stopping the run and were highly paid, although they were good pass rushers. So they basically went out and got two guys that were really bad at stopping the run, replaced guys that were good at stopping the run. They weren't great pass rushers, but they weren't terrible. But Latue and the other kid were pretty damn good at, stopping the run. And then what do? They swap them out for guys that can't stop the run for shit, but they're really good pass rushers. Well, so now everybody just runs on them. I mean, you're never going to get to rush the passer if you can't stop the run early. So it's just, I guess it's kind of, their names seem like they should be a good front seven, but when you look at the reason why their teams let them go, they were both let go for the same exact reason. It was their run stuffing ability. It's bad. It's below average for guys that demand their salary with that type of name recognition.
Yeah, I mean, I happen to live in this pocket of the country where every week on Tuesday we get the Panthers talk update, and the guys come in and talk about how the Carolina Panthers played in the past week. And the two names that are usually brought up first and foremost, Cam Newton and K'Wan Short. K'Wan Short is like a big reason why, according to them, this defense isn't performing up to par. But moving on to wide receivers that you can pick up off the waiver wire, Week 13, plug into your lineup and hope for the best. We got Robbie Anderson, who scored a touchdown this past week, taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, who are obviously a terrible pass defense, giving up big plays to third-string wide receivers and fourth-string quarterbacks. Duck Hodges connecting with James Washington for big plays. So I like Robbie Anderson as a guy who is not owned highly in most leagues thanks to some dud weeks he put up earlier against the Giants and the Dolphins. Didn't take advantage of those matchups, but now is apparently starting to build a rapport again with Sam Darnold. Nelson Aguilar, who was banged up, missed this past week against the Seahawks. Definitely not a sexy play by any means, but if Alshon misses this game, Aguilar is the default number one after the team has already waived Jordan Matthews after a terrible week. So I don't know how we think we have options to where we can just waive wide receivers, but hey, that's what happens. The carousel continues at wide receiver in Philadelphia. If Aguilar's healthy, obviously on the road against the Miami Dolphins, who just gave up 3 touchdowns to Baker Mayfield, there's going to be points to be had, and Aguilar is hopefully going to be the recipient of one of those TDs. Former Packer Randall Cobb is a pretty interesting pickup this week. The Dallas Cowboys are at home against the Buffalo Bills, and Tre'Davious White, stud cornerback for the Buffalo Bills, is likely to be matched up on the likes of Amari Cooper, leaving work to be had for Randall Cobb, who is still somehow less than 50% owned in most leagues. Well, I shouldn't say somehow, right? I mean, it's not like you can just plug Randall Cobb into your lineup each and every single week and be confident about it. A.J. Brown, another guy that we talked about, only had 4 catches, but gave you big yardage. That's what you're going to get with him each week. Doesn't get a lot of targets, but can take big plays to the house. So if he's on your wire, if you need to pick up A.J. Brown on the road against the Colts, is someone you might be able to use. And then finally, guys, the duo of Bears wide receivers between Taylor Gabriel and Anthony Miller. Miller had himself 6 catches for 77 yards, so a decent week in PPR this past week for Miller. Taylor Gabriel was not as successful, but they are taking on the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving, so it's going to be an interesting game. I know the Bears are going to give it their all, so Anthony Miller and or Taylor Gabriel, someone you might be able to plug into your lineup as a flex wide receiver. Those are your waiver wire pickups for the week, guys. Good luck. I mean, it's week 13, so everyone is hoping for the best right now, trying to make that playoff push.
How do you feel about T.Y. playing this week and getting more carries? I mean, more touches for targets.
And we talked about T.Y. this last week, and I'm glad I talked you out of playing him. Unfortunately, I did have to play him. I was let down, and I had to watch T.Y. do nothing while Tyler Boyd lit up the scoreboard on my bench, and that was painful. But, yeah, T.Y. against Tennessee at home. I think I guess he was on the snap count this last.
He said his calf tightened up during last Thursday's loss in the first quarter.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
It makes me wary of playing him this week.
They need big plays.
I think T.Y. is one of those guys that you consider dropping and picking up one of those other players you're talking about. He's been erratic at best, and he's been going downhill quick. There are plenty of other good, more consistent guys. Because really, right now at best, he's a fringe flex guy. He's mainly a bench player, and like you're going into the playoffs, why do you want to carry a guy that you might be able to pick up a Deebo Samuel or somebody else that you mentioned or we talked about, or a Josh Gordon or somebody that's out there that definitely has better matchups, has got better usage, and is actually on an upward trajectory instead of the way T.Y. has been going over the last 6 weeks.
I mean, I personally would rather have T.Y. than any one of those guys. I just think that he was on a snap count. They want to be careful with him. They know they still have a chance at playoffs. So I feel better about T.Y. than that. But, yeah, he's risky right now, right? I mean, soft tissue injuries can happen at any point.
I'm saying this because this reminds me of the last 3 years of Randall Cobb. Really, it's the truth. It's what Dave and I argued about all offseason, and then finally it's like, you know what? We're arguing from two different damn things. Like, Dave is just saying, like, yeah, he's good, but he's never injured, so what good is it? Like, and that's kind of what the soft tissue here. It's like T.Y.'s had a soft tissue problem all year.
His career.
Yeah.
So, I guess to me, I'm looking, this is just from this has nothing to do with your advice, but this is just from where I'm looking at it. If you have any hopes as a person like I am to try to go up against the juggernaut teams like guys like you and your freaking family members that you coach up, you gotta stay away from guys that are risky like that. It's because you guys already have pretty solid damn teams and good bench players, so you might be able to take a risk if you're on a bye more like that because the rest of your team's guys like me, like I got a lot of boomer bust guys at the back end of my team. And so right now going into the playoffs, you're looking for guys that are got the good matchups that can at least be consistent and you can depend on. Because those boomer bust guys, that's why I got rid of Aaron Jones. Because I figured going in the playoffs, that could kill me if he's on an off week. You can't afford that.
Oh, yeah, for the rest of the season, I mean, you do have to view T.Y. as more of a wide receiver 2 than 1 for sure. I mean, I just think he's going to be limited by this injury, and he's not going to be able to put up the huge stat lines. But I also look at the logic that a lot of guys think of, and they think, would I rather lose with T.Y. Hilton in my lineup or someone like Robbie Anderson, who was a total dart throw? So I do take that approach as well.
I mean, if you're going to play someone like Sam Darnold, you might as well play Ryan Griffin. It seems like he's been a safety net every week.
Yeah, you got a good pickup there, brother. Good pickup in Griffin.
Good thing I have Darnold, too, and I swiped him off the waivers.
Just scooping up all the Jets. I mean, you can have them.
They're playing pretty darn good the past 3 games.
Go ahead, pick them up, play them this week.
Yeah, they're playing the Bengals.
Play them this week. Because this will be the week the Bengals.
Speaking of that, really. Guys, I mean, I have to decide between T.Y. And speaking of T.Y., right? I have to decide between T.Y., Sterling Shepard, and Tyler Boyd. So good luck to me in one of my leagues. I know. It's been tough.
Tyler Boyd's wide receiver 1 on a team that's going back to Andy Dalton, who had a good rapport for him. They're going to be behind, or maybe they're not. Maybe they come out and the whole team's re-energized because Driscoll is just feudally terrible. And Dalton is kind of pissed off. He wasn't quiet about it. He was pissed off they did that to him. So, he might just come out trying to fire some rockets down there to put on some tape because he's out of town. He's out of Cincy. So he might be playing with some fire under that red rocket ass of his.
Are you talking about reckless abandon?
I would say I would play Boyd there based on all that, just on life information there, because I think he's more likely just to wing it up on Boyd saying, well, screw it. I'm going to win our only game this season. And, I'm going to do it in Styles fashion. So, yeah, I think with Dalton coming back, I think Boyd's the play there. I think he's a safer play than T.Y. Hilton, quite honestly.
Especially if Dalton's coming back.
Should I try and pick up someone?
They announced it to this afternoon. Taylor came out and said Dalton was going to start this week.
Yeah, the Jets' defense the past 3 games has been pretty tough. I mean,
the sun is finally shining on me.
AJ Green is out.
Oh, I forgot you're a Red Rocket Rifle guy.
Yeah, he's a Dalton backer.
Die harder. Dying through this.
The revenge of the Sith.
But that's what they got, though. They got Tyler Boyd. That's it. The Jets have a formidable defense still.
But that means they're going to be behind. See, they either get up on him, and it's because he's throwing touchdowns to Tyler Boyd, because that's the only person that can catch the ball, and he's
Jamal Adams isn't going to let that happen.
Okay. Or he's going to rack up a bunch of catches in a half-point PPR league because they're behind, and a bunch of nonsense catches in yardage and garbage time, and probably for sure a touchdown or 2 in garbage time because he's the only guy that's reliable. So again, I would say, from my end looking at it, he's a safer play than T.Y. Hilton.
You guys want
guys on the Indy team right now that are taking up the targets.
You guys want to move into start sits or take a break quick?
A quick tip.
What?
If you want to start defense, go for Detroit's defense because they're playing Bustiski.
Don't do that because they're going to run down their throat. They're going to run down their throat.
No, they won't. David Montgomery can't find the hole if it was wide open.
Oh.
He doesn't do too bad. They don't do a great job blocking.
They traded away Jordan Howard to make room for Montgomery, which Jordan Howard has more rushing yards than the whole Bears rushing room.
And he has probably 122 more touches than Montgomery.
Jordan Howard's competing with Miles Sanders, too. It's not just him.
I do it. No, actually, Montgomery